In this video, we are going to go over how to write and graph inequalities. Before we get started, let's go ahead and take a moment to review what an inequality actually is. An inequality is a mathematical sentence that compares expressions. It contains the symbol less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. To write an inequality, look for the following phrases to determine where to place the inequality symbol. So we have this table here to give you a better idea of when to use which symbol. So your less than symbol, this guy right here, your key phrases are is less than or is fewer than. Your greater than symbol right here, key phrases is greater than or is more than. Both of those are typically used when we're talking about the greater than inequality. Your less than or equal to, key phrases is less than or equal to, is as at most, or is no more than. All three of those are referring to your less than or equal to symbol. And your greater than or equal to symbol, your key phrase is greater than or equal to, is at least, or is no less than. So if you're trying to decide which inequality symbol to use, you can always go back to this table in your notes, assuming that you copied it down like you should. So if you need to, go ahead and hit pause on this video so you can get this table copied down into your notes. Okay, let's move on. Your key concept that you need to remember involving these four inequality symbols is your less than and your greater than symbol are both going to be referring to an open circle. So we're just going to draw a circle without coloring it in. Your less than or equal to symbol and your greater than or equal to symbol both refer to a closed circle. So we will draw a circle and fill in that circle. This is a key thing that you're going to need to remember. Also, highly recommend that you put this chart in your notes. Again, if needed, always feel free to hit pause on this video at any time to make sure you're getting a good copy of notes down in your notebook. Let's start looking at some examples. Let's begin with writing inequalities. So when asked to write an inequality, you will be given a graph that looks something like this, and you are asked to write the inequality. So our first step is going to be to determine what symbol we want to use. So our first thing is to look right here. Do we have an open or a closed circle? Here we have an open circle. So which symbols do we know we can eliminate? If we look back at the previous slide, an open circle, we know it's either going to be less than or greater than. We can automatically exclude those last two symbols. So step one, let's write this down. Step one is going to be to identify the symbol you need. Now we need to look at our graph. Do we have anything over here on the left of the graph? No. So we don't want anything less than -2. We want everything over here to the right. All of those numbers are greater than or larger than that -2. So we know we need a greater than symbol. So step one, identify the symbol we need. We need a greater than. Step two, go ahead and choose a variable. We were not given a specific, you have to use this variable, so just choose any variable you want. I'm going to stick with the generic x. That is typically what we always use. So I'm going to use an x. We also need to identify what number that open or closed circle is on. For us, that one is this guy right here, which is a -2. So we know that our variable is always greater than that -2. So step 3, we just have to write our equation. Sorry, not equation, inequality. So write your inequality. So we would have x, our variable, is greater than what number? That -2. And we have our inequality right here. Let's look at another example. Here we have a closed circle at 5. A closed circle means we're going to have the or equals to part of the symbol. What side is shaded in? This side over here. So everything on the right is greater than that 5. So I'm not going to write all 3 steps down like we did on the previous one. If you need to in your notes, feel free to pause the video to take the time to write down the breakdown of each step. I am again going to choose x for my variable. So I know x is greater than or equal to, because it is a closed circle, and what number? That 5. So we have x is greater than or equal to 5. Let's look at another example. Again, here we have a closed circle at -4. Closed means we're going to have that or equals to on the part of our symbol. I'm again going to use x just because we typically always use an x. So where is it going to be? Is it less than or greater than? Well, everything shaded in is over here to the right, which is greater than -4. And we had a closed circle, so we want x is greater than or equal to -4. Let's look at another example. Here, again, we have a closed circle, this time at 2. I'm still going to use the x, but this time, instead of being greater than, we're over here to the left, which means everything to the left is less than that 2. And it was a closed circle, so we want less than or equal to our number 2. Let's look at one last example involving writing the equation. Here we again have a closed circle at -2. I'm going to use x. Everything to the right is greater than, and it was a closed circle, so greater than or equal to that number, -2. So we've taken the time to work through 5 examples where you're given a graph and you are asked to write the inequality. Let's take some time to look at some examples going the other direction. This time I will give you the inequality and ask you to draw the graph. So looking at this, we have an r is less than or equal to 2. Our steps are still kind of the same. Our first step is we need to determine whether we need an open or a closed circle. So step 1, I'm going to abbreviate and just say open or closed circle. You're determining which one. Are you going to need an open or a closed circle? And that goes back to our key concept table. We have a less than or equals to, so that means we are going to have a closed circle. Means we're going to fill in our circle. Where is that circle going to be located at? At the 2. So step 2 is to plot your open or closed circle. So for us, it was located at 2, and it was going to be a closed circle. So there is my closed circle at 2. Step 3 is going to be determining which side we need to shade. Sorry, step 3. I think I said step 2. Step 3 is going to be determine what side to shade. Well, we need to determine our symbol. Our symbol says less than or equal to. What numbers are less than 2? Well, that's these guys over here are less than 2. And these guys over here are more than 2. So we want to shade all the numbers that are less than 2. That's going to be these guys over here. So we're going to shade this side of our line. And we have our graph of r is less than or equal to 2. Let's look at another example. Here we have a is greater than or equal to -2. Figure out, do we need an open or a closed circle? This is a greater than or equal to, so we're going to need a closed circle at the -2. So let's draw our closed circle at -2, and we need to figure out which side of this line are the numbers greater than -2. And that would be this side over here to the right, so we can shade in this side of our line. And we were able to graph a is greater than or equal to -2. Let's look at a third example. Here we have n is greater than -2. Our symbol is greater than, so we need an open circle at -2. So there's my open circle at -2. What side of this circle are the numbers going to be greater than -2? Those numbers that are larger than -2 are over here to the right. So we can shade in that part of our graph. Let's look at another example. Here we have v is less than or equal to -5. Our symbol has the or equal to, so we want a closed circle located at that number -5. So here's my closed circle at -5. And what side of that circle are my numbers less than -5? That would be over here to the left. So we can shade in that part of our graph. And we have our graph of v is less than or equal to -5. Let's look at one last example of graphing inequalities. Here we have x is less than 6. Our symbol is less than, so we want an open circle at 6. Here is our open circle at 6. What side of this line on those what side of that circle on the line is less than 6? That would be everything over here to the left. So we can color in our line and know that everything on this side of that circle is less than 6. So we have our graph of x is less than 6. Hopefully this video helped explain and review for you how to write inequalities when given a graph, as well as how to graph an inequality when you were given the inequality. As always, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to come see me in class so that I can answer and clarify any misunderstandings that you may have.